Hello everyone and welcome back to As Brothers podcast episode 3. I'm Stobbie on for 9 and joined as usual by Bosco and Hanz Gruber is our returning guest. Hanz, Bosco, how are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you for asking, man. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's great to be back. Thank you.
Awesome. It's been a couple of weeks. I've been on a bit of holiday. I know you guys have been busy as well. And in the intervening time, we've had the full release. There's been two changes that have happened. Change 1.0.0.2 and 1.0.0.4. I had a look at both of them, and it was only 0.04 that I thought was really even worth covering. But just do feel free to jump in and add anything if you didn't want to. So I've just pulled up the update here for 04. And let's just cover some of the basics here. So first of all, the main thing is added a map seed that can be entered upon starting a new campaign and seen for ongoing campaigns created after this update for replaying and sharing maps. What a cool feature. It never even occurred to me that they do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, one of the things that's going to open up is the ability to do challenge runs, where people are all doing the same seed and seeing how long they can go with it, which could be very interesting.
Yeah, it really caught me off guard when they announced it, and then first it was a bit weird to me. It felt like the whole point of the game is to keep getting new maps, and then I realized the same thing, like, you can actually now compete with your friends. See,
and your viewers can play on the same seed that we've been playing on, and they can do so much better than us and show, oh, look how far I am along at this point, you suck. But now that you've mentioned it, Hanz, perhaps it's worth doing in the future. All three of us can start a new campaign from the same seed, and then we can compare where we are at certain dates in the campaign, and Hanz can show us how good he is and how much further along he is than us.
I'll show you how greedy I am in the same fights you guys are doing.
Well, yeah, because, like, I mean, you'll make comments like, oh, yeah, I want to get my first reinforced Malhor book by day 30. I'm like, how the hell do you get 3,000 gold together by day 30? Like, what the fuck, man?
Like, someone only uses maces, someone only uses swords and stuff like that.
Well, speaking of which, I'll bring that up towards the end, because, I mean, as you guys might have seen, I gave my little cripples, bastards, and broken things run a try, and it ended as quickly and spectacularly as it started. Turns out that when you do some raiding, the cities that you raided against hire some mercenaries, and they are quite badasses, and they very much kill you. So lesson learned there.
They can also be complete pushovers.
The ones that I got were not were not pushovers. That's episode 11 of my Cripples campaign. If you just the final battle might give you a chuckle. We got completely shat on, and I thought rather than running away, we'll take it on the chin, because I kind of felt like the campaign wasn't going anywhere anyway.
Yeah, in the past I did try to take on some mercenary camps. One of them had nothing but dudes in padded leather with a couple of war dogs, and then the next one had a hedge knight and a swords master. They were all decked out in scale armor. It's like, oh, there's a bit of a difference here.
Wow. But yeah, Bosco, that's a pretty cool idea. So perhaps in a few weeks, a month's time, we'll get a seed generated, and then each of us will do like a certain theme. Like, I'm still determined to give my Lost Vikings playthrough a try, where you use only axes and nothing but axes. I know it's a strategy that's not ultimately going to be that viable because of its weaknesses, but it's one that I think could be quite fun.
Actually, axes would be one of the better weapon types that you can take in fights.
I still reckon the main issue with that is you don't have maces, so you don't have crowd control, which is a gigantic problem. But
the only problem you're really going to have with that is vampires. You have no way of locking them down.
Yeah,
but
I tell you what, though,
orcs, you should do fine. Banished.
Oh yeah, we can touch on this a little bit later when we start looking at the perks again, because a lot of the points we're going to make about these type of runs where you go for only one type of weapon has its weaknesses. But we can cover that when we look at all the tier 4 masteries, all the different weapons. Anything else you wanted to add, Bosco, on that point?
I was just gonna say earlier that I find it an interesting choice that when you fight with mercenaries, you don't get the indication what type of mercenaries you fight with. All the other time, any sort of enemies give you some sort of input. Is it a poacher? Is it a marksman? It all indicates what sort of enemies you're gonna get. Mercenaries are just as big of a question mark as your own company. I find it very interesting as a choice.
Yeah, and that has just piqued an idea that I would love if there was a class where, okay, immediately that sounds overpowered, but like if you have a class, for example, like a scout, and you hire this guy, he doesn't have huge hit points, doesn't have huge ability, but what you get from him really is that if you are, let's say, within a certain distance of an enemy warband, then he can, instead of just saying some mercenaries, he'll say 8 mercenaries, or exactly 6 mercenaries, or it'll break it down into exactly what you're up against. I think we're pretty damn cool.
I think a way to maybe do that is implement a building kind of like the Veterans Hall, where you could hire a scout for a certain amount of time to be able to give you accurate information.
Although, ultimately, that kind of thing, yeah, that's cool, but then again, it would just translate into another finance drain, and they wouldn't add anything, you know, dynamically on the battlefield. But that's the kind of thing that's difficult to balance.
More of a safety net in the mid to late game when you're debating whether or not you can take a place on.
Yeah.
Like, knowing the difference between 3 archers with short bows and 4 with crossbows.
Oh God, yeah.
That makes a pretty big difference.
I mean, speaking of crossbows, that's my biggest frustrations. I mean, I realize that when you use archers, archers are better than crossbowmen generally. But when I'm fighting against marksmen, it's the crossbowmen that I struggle with, because they'll hit you in the head and, you know, one-shot someone. It's incredibly frustrating. So we'll cover that again. We're getting a little bit off course. Let's stick to the updates here for 1 sec. Okay, so next point was added checkbox for permanent destruction during late game crisis when starting a new campaign. It's checked by default to work how you used to. Unchecking it will result in settlements getting the raised situation for a considerable time instead of being permanently destroyed. What do we think of that?
I'm going to hold you up real quick, Stobbie. You're still listed as being under PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds with no updated title.
That's fine. I mean,
okay.
I'll change it in a sec, but yeah. So what do you guys think of that permanent destruction?
I personally didn't mind the destruction. Sure, it could be frustrating, but it's added something. I really liked it as a challenge inside the game, but I also know that many people hated it really much. So I think it's cool that they figured, like, okay, some people like the destruction, some don't. What if we just make a switch so you could play however you want to play it? And that's, again, we covered it the last time, I think, that the developers are really cool.
Yeah.
And they actually listen to the players. I think that's just another sign of that.
One of the things that I think is really big about it is that it means that you're no longer crippled in the mid to late game if you choose the undead or the orc crises, because they can permanently raise settlements, whereas the nobles cannot. So this lets you be able to more easily pick one of those and not, like, say, lose one of your 2 temples to start the game with, which makes the rest of the game a lot more difficult.
That's a good point, because I mean, if you lose one, or, you know, heaven forbid, 2 of your temples, you are shit out of luck. I mean, that's pretty much campaign ending. I mean,
I had one of my viewers in doing the orc invasion. The first 2 cities he lost on either side of the map were both of his temples. He had no temples left on his map.
Oh.
Well, I do know when I start tonight, I'm going to be not playing with permanent destruction, because just sort of like in the canon of the game, it just kind of strikes me as, it just makes sense that the city, even if a city gets totally razed, I mean, if you secure the city, if you kill everything else around there, I don't see why you couldn't rebuild that city, or, I mean, especially if it's like a little workshop that gets taken out or something like that. I don't see why they couldn't fix it. I think it's something that you should not be playing with, but yeah, it depends, I suppose, on how much you want to punish yourself. Okay, so added a warning prompt for users of Avast due to compatibility issues introduced with one of their latest updates. I've been struggling with that because I use Avast. And I've added the exclusions, and it doesn't cause the game to crash anymore, but it does make the process of saving a game take almost a minute. So any of you out there who have Avast, you don't have to get angry and think about uninstalling Avast like I almost did this morning. Just add the Battle Brothers folder to the exceptions list and the save game folder, and then just be prepared for saving games to take upwards or even a minute. Hopefully they'll get it sorted at some point, so a bit annoying. Nothing to add there really from you guys. So next one, changed game to unpause only after auto-serving is completed when leaving towns in Iron Man mode, so no time on the world map is wasted. I never experienced that, and it's a pretty tiny thing.
I did experience it, and I actually am very thankful that it does this, because this means that when you're doing attacks against certain cities, like during the Noble War, and they've got a group fighting you, and you're hopping into the town to maybe sell some loot, open up some slots. This way, it doesn't put you in combat before it shows you the world map screen.
Oh yeah, I
I've
see.
actually
Okay,
had
right.
that happen a couple times, and it's very helpful.
Okay,
Gives
and then
you
a couple.
bit more time to react.
All right, cool. Oscar, anything?
No, I was about to say the same thing. So
Yeah, but I suppose like it's struck me as a minor thing, but as you've pointed out, Hans, it only has to happen once in the course of an entire campaign to kind of completely screw over your entire campaign. So glad they fixed that. Then a couple of things on the screen there. The last ones are just minor, little, quality of life fixes. I'm just going down to update 1.02. And I don't think there's anything really worth covering, so changed battles at night to be brighter, and it's fine. Fixed AI, ranged AI, potentially getting stuck in calculations. I haven't seen that happen yet. And then just a bunch of fixes, so that's about it. Okay, so I think that covers the discussion of the changelog. I reckon we can move on to the next point we wanted to cover, which was Gruber. I think there's some tapping coming through on the audio. Get up, please. Gruber.
What's that?
There's some tapping of your desk coming through onto the audio.
Oh, sorry. That was my dog's tail.
Oh, a good dog. So, okay, never mind. So, what I wanted to cover next was mid to late game crisis, and sort of how should we frame the discussion? I think it'll be too broad if I ask you guys, how should you be looking to get yourself situated in, say, from day 40 upwards to day 60, which is typically when your first late game crisis can actually pop up. Because there's so many different late game crises, and we're going to discuss them each specifically in one of the future podcasts. So what I wanted to ask from you guys was, do you have any tips or suggestions in, if you're in your campaign, things are going okay, you know that the late game crisis is going to be happening, regardless of what it is, what sort of milestones are you aiming for around the 60-day mark? Make sure that whatever the late game crisis is, you should be okay to handle it.
I'll take this one to lead here. For day 60-ish, I generally want my entire line in chainmail hauberks, which is the 150 for 18 fatigue. And generally, I'll normally still be in the 140 helms that you get from the bandits, though I'll have a couple of them upgraded from bandit leaders that I take out here and there. Though I've lately also been relying on the fallen hero helmets. They're heavy armor, but really heavy fatigue, but lately I haven't had an issue with that, which has been really nice.
The first thing I wanted to ask you about that is the full chainmail hauberk is 150 armor for, is it 18 fatigue?
Yep.
So the patched mail is 110 armor for only 10 fatigue. So I mean, I'm weighing up the extra fatigue against the 40 extra armor.
The 40 extra armor usually absorbs an extra hit, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, because
fatigue hasn't been an issue for me. Like, I still have some dudes without brawny right now that are sitting at 100 fatigue and scale armor right now.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Anything else?
My approach is a little bit different, because I'm usually playing like just enjoying the rides. I don't plan that much ahead. Whatever happens, sort of, if it makes any sense. And what I've found really successful is when I feel like, okay, probably the crisis is about to start, I just go around in one house, the settlement of one house's property, and get really good terms with them. And so far it turned out to be great for me, because it didn't really matter what kind of crisis it was. I kept getting a lot of contracts, a lot of support when I've fought with orcs and other houses. And I usually choose the house with the most settlements nearby, so I can quickly run around and get contracts, get new people, get gear. I can basically, I have anything in a really short amount of time.
So that actually leads into the next point I wanted to make to you guys and get your input on. So the most efficient way to make money, I mean, I'm always amazed at how much money you seem to make and how quickly, Hands, and I'm wondering, so once I get my team set up and quote-unquote doing well, in my experience, the most profitable missions have been the patrol missions, because they tend to pay the most, but I'm beginning to second-guess that. I'm wondering, it's actually not the most efficient way to make money, because you have to sink 7 days into doing it.
Yeah.
So
I actually avoid patrol missions pretty heavily, unless it's just a short one, like between 3 cities that are next to each other. And I'll just do the loop, and I'll turn it in, and I don't care if I actually kill anyone for it. I'm doing
Okay.
it for the reputation with the noble faction to
Ah.
get the better prices.
One thing I have started doing was I'll get to a situation where I have a team that is generally strong enough to handle pretty much whatever I encounter in a ruin, like a tumbled ruins or burnt down house or whatever, and I'll just run straight to them, clear out. For example, if you're super lucky, you'll get 24 zombies, and then that's 24 heads right there. You can do a week's worth of patrol kills in a day or two just from clearing out ruins. So that way, I mean, I want to clear those ruins out anyway, and hell, I'm getting paid to do it as on a patrol mission. So I found that to be quite useful.
Yeah, I usually don't wait for patrol missions to clear those out because I see them as easy sources of EXP to level up my dudes.
Especially if it's
are
the
just
zombies.
too good for EXP, yeah.
Yeah.
So really, the only things I've got left on my map are like mass graves and the ruins that you don't know what's in there.
Mass graves can
Because
be.
they're kind of a wild card.
Oh god, mass graves can be an absolute nightmare. You're talking ancient dead. You're talking vampires, which I hate so much. Oh, they're the worst.
To me, actually, vampires have been pretty easy, and I aggressively hunted them in the current campaign that you're watching.
Oh my
right
god,
now.
yeah.
I actually took out a vampire coven on day 17 to get my first famed item.
How many vampires were in there?
It was, I want to say 5 vampires, but it was only 5 vampires. And I got very lucky with the fact that I already had 2 dudes with war dogs at that point.
Yeah.
So the war dogs literally soaked 3 full turns from the vampires and just never got hit.
Wow. Let's talk about war dogs, because a persistent comment that keeps popping up on my YouTube channels, YouTube videos, is that my viewers keep telling me I don't use dogs enough, and I'm beginning to think like I really should use dogs more offensively. I'm generally only using them to chase someone who's running away, and I don't like to use them in the middle of a fight because first of all, I'm too much of a softie. I hate the sound of a dog being cut to pieces, but those dogs are expensive, man, and I'm just thinking if you start losing dogs regularly, that's what, if you get them cheap, they're 300 gold a pop. If you lose 4 or 5 dogs, that's 1500 gold. I mean,
yes, but if you compare that to losing a single brother, that's cheap.
Yeah,
especially if it's a leveled up brother. I usually use them as meat shields, which is, my chat hates me for it. They're always yelling PETA. I use them to soak orc blows, to soak vampire blows, and I've been using them to aggressively hunt Geist during Beauderganger fights.
That is something I very much do as well. I found them to be wonderfully effective against Geists, because Geists just tie up all your men, and they're absolute ball bags. I can't stand them. Okay, so I'm going to try to use dogs a bit more and just quash the horrible feeling of a dog being
you only need
up.
like 1 or 2 dogs, period. You just use them to catch and maybe get on the archers that you can potentially get onto, and 1 to 2 dogs is really all you need to help you out against the Geists.
And are you using more dogs than 2 once you get to the late game?
Once I get to the mid to late game, depending on the availability of the dogs, I'll use them more heavily. Like in this game that you're watching right now, I only have 1 kennel. It's in the very south, and it's it's in a area that I'm going to be going to war with in the Noble War. So my dogs
stock up
are
on dogs.
Not very available.
Yeah.
And I actually lost quite a few dogs in a vampire coven fight that I shouldn't have fought.
I actually heard about people implementing a strategy. Well, it was a while ago, but the thing they did is just to try to encircle the enemies, and they used a lot of dogs to do that. So they sort of distract the enemy and build up fatigue for them. Essentially, they were meat bags there too, or meat shields.
Yeah,
that's so wrong.
I'm sorry, Stobbie.
Oh god, look at all these marksmen, and it's in a swamp. This is the nightmare right here. But
this is the one where they landed 3 crossbow bolts in a row.
Yeah, this is also.
There's one of my brothers in this one.
When I've been struggling the most, it's with marksmen. So, man, it's so frustrating. In terms of, okay, so we'll leave this for the perk discussion on how to counter enemy marksmen in perks. I think that pretty much covers the mid to late game discussion, and I really appreciate this discussion because I haven't really gotten much further than that in any of my playthroughs, and every time I start a playthrough, I always start by saying, this is the run, this is the one that goes deep. That never seems to work out, but I'll get there.
So I'm debating right now whether I'm going to be ending this one after the first crises or to keep going.
Honestly, I usually stop playing after the first crisis occurs, because I just want a fresh start and have something different. It's not a good word to say I get bored of it, because that's not the case, but somehow I always feel like, okay, yeah, that was cool. Let's see what we can do in a different map, different circumstances. Let's change it around a little bit.
Yeah, although,
Yeah, I hear you there.
don't you find that subsequent crises get easier to handle because they're popping when you have fully kitted out guys? Not that you don't in the first
the
one.
second
but you have
crisis can
progressively.
be really ugly. The third one's generally a joke.
So would you say that worst case scenario is you get undead first, then greenskin, then war?
I would say greenskin first would be the worst, because you can still get the mission to go hunt the warlord.
Oh god.
Yeah, and a day 70 warlord is not a fun thing.
Doesn't matter how many dogs you have, you're not winning that.
I mean, you can. You just have to completely build your party to just not be able to take arrow hits, and since the greenskin invasion has those stupid ambushers mixed in,
Oh god, I hate ambushes. That
you make yourself
poison
weak
you.
to be able to do the heavy fights.
God, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I actually have a question, gentlemen. Do you ever use poisonous arrows?
Nope.
I have.
Poison from the goblins.
I have against orcs, and I found it to be wonderful. But it's very rare that I'm actually able to pull it off. I mean, first of all, even getting the poison in hand. But I mean, if I get the opportunity, hell yes. I mean, I remember I shot an orc warrior with it. It made that orc warrior a lot less threatening because he only swing once a turn, and he had a shield. And the AI was actually stupid. It just put its shield up and then didn't even swing. I just ignored it for like 3 or 4 turns. Right.
The most consistent way I found of actually applying the poison is to put it on a dagger bro, and just let it puncture and immediately apply it from that.
Yeah.
Indeed, because if you don't get through armor, you can't apply the poison.
And it still uses up the charge. It has 4 charges regardless of whether you hit the health or not.
Yeah, so if you swing 4 times and hit but don't puncture armor, you're just wasting it.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. So unless there's anything else you guys want to cover, I think let's move on to our perk discussion. I'm just opening up the wiki here. So last time we covered up to tier 3. Now I'm looking at tier 4, starting with all the various weapon masteries. So the first one, I think this has got to be probably everyone's favorite. That's certainly my favorite. Mace mastery.
One of mine, yeah.
Oh yeah, master maces to beat your opponent into submission, armored or not. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Knockout has 100% chance to stun the target if not immune. I think this is absolutely vital, and it's the one thing that I think is going to be the real big weakness in my Lost Vikings build. Having maybe I could make the concession of having everybody uses axes except for 2 guys who are just there to bash heads in.
No cheats, man. No cheats.
Yeah, full roleplay or nothing. I think because I really want to get to the late game, but I guess if people want their late game content, that they go to Hands. If they want to see someone struggling manfully near the early game with weird builds, it's probably then you come to me for that. Anything to add about Mace Mastery?
It's the consistency of knockouts the biggest part of that. The minus fatigue's always nice because you are using a lot of fatigue, but it's the 75% to 100% chance to stun is just so reliable for locking down targets. And I've actually been finding once I started using Mace Mastery early, I was able to more consistently get the dagger kills to be able to get the armor.
Yes.
And something that I've recently started doing for the Mace Mastery is that all of my guys have a wooden club to not deal damage to the armor.
Exactly the point I was going to make. They just bash them on the head with a wooden stick just to keep them stunned.
Actually, my early day 17 vampire fight, my archer actually had a wooden club and got the 25% hit chance on the vampire to stun him.
Clutch. Absolutely clutch. Anything to add there, Bosco, on Mace Mastery?
No, not really. I think we covered everything.
There isn't a 2-handed mace version, is there?
There is not.
That would be pretty cool. If
They
there was
might
one
be planning
added.
to add it in later on, but I don't know.
Okay, next, Flail Mastery. Master flails and circumvent your opponent's shield. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Lash ignores a defense bonus of shields. I really like flails. The issue I have with them is that they fall off as the game goes on because they just don't do consistent enough damage. And I was wondering whether... I did notice, Hans, in your playthrough, you had a flail bro quite late on. And did you not find that you struggle with lack of damage? Or how did you mitigate
I just use them to
damage?
prioritize certain targets, bandits mainly that don't have headpieces. And it's still very effective against the Ancient Dead, since they all use the shields. But Flail Mastery, in my opinion, is the second worst mastery in the game. and I never take it.
Yeah. What I was wondering. Yeah, go on.
It's probably only helping to a certain point. So it looks appealing because you fight a lot with bandits at the early game or early to mid, and so you might consider it. But on the long run, if you're gonna play for a long campaign, it probably doesn't really worth it, in my opinion.
But I think it's probably, if you want to build a good all-round team, it's probably good to have one flail bro, and then when your enemy loads in, you target the guy with either no helmet or the weakest helmet to go bash their head in, and it's a good idea. I was wondering whether you could mitigate the lower damage with some other perk to sort of make it better. I mean, crippling strikes, not really, because the mace does, or the flail does 0 to, I think it's 13 armor piercing, so not likely to give a crippling strike.
Let me see. I've only got unique flails here, so that's not exactly helpful.
Yeah, you could take Executioner on your flail, bro, but then you need someone else to cause a wound first. So
I think the only thing you could consistently do to get the damage up is take Duelist with it, but you're better off using a different weapon if you're using Duelist.
Yeah, because then you're not having a shield, the extra damage. Yeah, and then if you're not using a shield, you're better off with other weapons. Okay, and I would say that I have had an offline campaign where I had everyone using flails, and we were just gods in the early to mid game, but then it just fell off a cliff. And when we started fighting orc warriors, we were just hardly scratching the armor. It was a nightmare. And you hit the helmet, it's got like 1,000 head armor. You can't kill it. Very frustrating. Okay, next, hammer mastery, one that I'm very interested in. So master hammers and fighting against heavily armored opponents. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Destroy armor inflicts 33% more damage against armor, and shatter gains +5 chance to hit. So hammer mastery is interesting, but I don't know, like the two-handed hammer is, well, I'm going to be probably, crucified for this, but it's my favorite two-handed weapon.
Mine
I love the way that you can hit 3 guys and knock them back and put them back to the back of the turn order and wreck armor. It's fucking wonderful.
I just enjoy the sound of it hitting.
Oh yeah, and the sounds they make, it's so dramatic. But then the little one-handed hammer, I mean, the military pick, it's cool for destroying armor, but I'm not really about destroying armor. I'm about conserving armor and taking it and stealing it. But just the damage it does, even when it's an unarmored target, just isn't enough. So I kind of feel that the hammer mastery, the one-handed ones at least, lacks something. I'm not quite sure how to remedy that.
The one-handed hammers are actually pretty solid. They're considered one of the best late-game one-handed weapons in the game, just because it can start breaking armor like a two-handed weapon can. And the thing that I like most about it is it's a consistent way to proc Fearsome. If it lands, it does health damage, which procs Fearsome.
Yep. And doesn't that also synergize with crippling strikes? Because if memory serves, crippling strikes, the base hit point damage to trigger it is 15 hit points.
Yep.
So if you take crippling strikes, it goes down to 10. So then, in
that
theory,
being said, I never really take crippling strikes, anyways.
Well, I'm going to
just a problem with my perks.
I'm going to experiment with that in a future playthrough, maybe with the axes. But I kind of like the idea of having a hammer master, who, in theory, unless the target you are hitting doesn't have, if they don't have Iron Jaw, if they're not undead, then in theory you should be able to inflict a wound on every hit, because it's inflicts at least 10 hit points every shot. And then that helps everybody else who has Executioner, so that's worth thinking about.
The thing is, though, is that the normal batter swing that it does generally already does 0 to 26 can ignore armor. It's just guaranteed at least a minimum of 10. So it already does have a good range of being able to trigger the injury without crippling strikes.
Indeed.
Yeah,
so
I still see being useful.
So basically, in that case, then, if you're taking crippling strikes, you've got a 100% chance to give a wound, but without it, then the hit point damage
about a 66% chance.
Yeah, because then it's spinning between 10 minimum damage and maximum of 26. So only if you roll at 10 to 14, you're not going to inflict. Okay, so I think we can agree then that if you're taking hammer mastery, it's probably not worth taking crippling strikes on that person.
Another thing to note too is that the chance to inflict an injury is also dependent on the max health of the opponent. So orcs are harder to inflict injuries on. Goblins are almost guaranteed to get injuries on. Yeah. And then bandits are somewhere in the middle.
Okay, so it does kind of scale. So then taking crippling strikes does kind of help if against orcs. And I mean, I have found I've had crippling strikes on Huskarls, who are my long axe, the Dane axe users, and those guys, if they hit someone, they're getting an injury. And the nice thing about the Dane axe, you tend to get the cut arm sinew and split shoulder injuries quite a lot, which are wonderful because if you hit an enemy with split shoulder or cut arm sinew, you can pretty much ignore them and focus on someone else, because even if they do hit you, they're doing almost no damage.
Another thing to note is that the blunt injuries tend to be better than the piercing and slashing injuries.
I have found that as well. Yeah. Okay, anything to add, Bosco? Can we move on to the next one?
Yeah, move on.
X Mastery, my Viking favorite. Mastering combat with axes and destroying shields. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Split shield damage to shields is increased by 50% when used with axes. Round swing gains plus 5% chances to hit. And the only thing I wanted to start off by saying with this is X Mastery is one of my favorites, but the round swing ability is one that I never use. Just because you have to put someone right out there and get them surrounded. It's just every time I use it, it tends to be a liability. I've almost always got an ally standing behind him, and I don't tend to use it.
I've only ever used it on Gangers, and that's because I just, at the point I was in, my guys were fully decked out in famed plate mail, so I just threw them in there and let them have fun.
You just walk out there and just spin in a circle and decapitate zombies. Hell yeah.
Basically, yeah, he was killing 4 to 5 zombies a swing.
Nice.
But Axe Mastery is definitely one of the best ones, just for split shield.
I personally only use axes to destroy shields, to be honest, so I don't feel that huge need of it. I would rather take something else with quick hands, to be honest. But that's just my way of playing.
So the thing is, I also like using Axe Mastery to destroy shields. One thing that has occurred to me is that obviously it depends on a bunch of factors, but a lot of times I'm feeling frustrated when I'm spending a turn or even 2 turns trying to get through shields when I could just be going around them, either around them with a flail or quote unquote around them with a spear, because the plus to hit from a spear pretty much negates the defense of a shield. And then I have found that all the time I'm spending and all the AP I'm spending, all the fatigue I'm spending to break a shield, there's that round or two with enemies hitting me, and then once I've successfully destroyed their shield, they still haven't taken any damage, and all I've done is boosted their damage. So I have reservations as to whether breaking shields is always the right thing to do.
It depends on the enemy. Personally, I think if you're fighting a Hedge Knight with a shield, or if you're fighting like honor guards with shields, breaking the shield every time is worth it. Unless, of course, it's a unique shield, which I found that out the hard way. I was wailing away on a Hedge Knight shield, and my chat's like, "You do know that's a unique shield, right?" After I broke it.
Oh man.
It's like, no, it's a kite shield.
It's a famed unique pile of splinters. Lovely. Yeah, SOS dude in chat agrees. Breaking a shield is not always right, and it's something I'm going to struggle with now in my Vikings playthrough. But then again, that's just part.
It'll depend entirely on your hit chance, because if you only have a 30% chance to hit, break the shield.
Yeah.
Odds are not with you of actually hitting them, whereas the shield breaking is a legitimate thing.
Yeah, and actually, a larger point in terms of the masteries, when to take the masteries. In my new playthrough now, starting this evening, I'm going to experiment with taking it as soon as I can, and the logic is that it's indirectly a way of saving fatigue. So it's the 25% less fatigue build up. So in the early game, I'm very often struggling with fatigue on my guys, and I look at it this way. If I'm using a hammer, it's normally 14 fatigue. With the mastery, it's 11. So if I swing twice, I've saved 6 fatigue, You think, hey, if I take something that adds plus 6 fatigue, that's well worth it. So when do you guys tend to take your specializations, weapon specializations? In what order? What in the build order, I mean?
It depends entirely on the weapon. Maces and bows, I always take as soon as it comes up, because I want the consistency of the mace, and the bow mastery is the only one that actually actively increases your chance to hit with the weapon, because of the bonus vision rate increases your chance to hit with the ranged weapon. The rest of them I generally save. The only one I ever take pretty frequently as well is the axe mastery for my backliners if I have long axes.
Yeah, dedicated shield breakers.
The shields.
Yeah.
I like to save it later, actually, because sometimes I just don't know what I want to a certain brother, so I wait it out, what I really want to use him, because obviously other factors could come in, let's say a permanent injury or some sort of things like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Bosco there, except I'm a little more greedy. I wait for famed weapons.
Do you guys do what I do when I hire someone new? I take a look at where their stars are and what their numbers are, and I instantly decide what their role is going to be. even if it doesn't quite fit into my team, I look at someone and they're just like, if someone has multiple stars in melee defense, that jumps out to me as someone who needs to be a two-handed weapon user, and I'm wondering whether that's maybe not the right thing to do.
I'm being a lot more frugal with designating two-handed dudes. I've built too many mediocre two-handed dudes that just cost me so much money in repairs and just pain and suffering. So I'm waiting. If they don't have 2 stars in melee attack and melee defense and a solid starting fatigue, they are not going two-handed with me. Period.
Let's go. Pretty much the
I'm
same.
very indecisive, and I often go into battles like switching around weapons, depending on what I'm about to fight. So
Yeah,
sometimes
me
it
too.
just feels like, I already gave him that sort of mastery, and it doesn't really help me with the last 3 battles. So
Yeah, and it's wasting their
feels
effectiveness.
bad. But after a while, when I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, this is what I should probably do with him, then I go for the mastery.
Indeed, and you make a good point there about using specific weapons for specific enemies. But my experience I had an offline campaign I was playing while I was on holiday in South Africa, which went actually quite deep. And my experience was early to mid, getting up to about day 90 even. You know, if I know I'm fighting just Noctirs, I'll put swords on everybody. If I'm fighting just zombies, I'll put spears on everybody. And you're just tailoring the weapon to what I'm fighting. But then, past a certain point, the usefulness kind of falls off. Where if I've got someone who's accurate enough, and I'm fighting, doesn't matter what I'm fighting. If he's got 80 attack value with a mace, I want him to be using the mace. And then at that point, I start selling all my swords I'm not using, all the spears I'm not using, and generally I'm not finding myself using spear war at all past the mid game.
Now that you mention, I actually against the zombies, I can the German names. I'm sorry. When I'm fighting with zombies, I usually take axes and cleavers to just chop their heads off and prevent them coming back. And fucking fallen heroes still coming back. So
well, I mean, funnily enough, I tried that against zombies. I put cleavers on everybody, and I managed to decapitate. But the thing is, you're spending 25 fatigue to decapitate someone, and then if it misses, you've wasted that fatigue. Whereas the zombie comes back, it just takes 1 swing to put it down again, so it's cost you 12 fatigue to swing at it rather than 25 to decapitate it. And I have mixed feelings as to whether it's always worth it to decapitate the zombies. The fatigue.
It makes you feel better.
It certainly does.
I never only use one type of weapon. To be honest, I usually just sit down and think about it for like a minute or so, or half a minute. Against this enemy, I don't know, honor guards, forget about anything that pierces. So let's get these weapons, and then I try to bring a little bit of everything so I can react to most of the things on the battlefield, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. And then one thing I wanted to cover, while I was streaming a little while ago, one of my viewers was pointing out that I should be using the orc weapons. Our viewer, Super Duper Noob, shout out, was saying that use that two-handed at axe, and I had a wild man.
The man splitter.
Indeed, I had a wild man with I think 116 base fatigue, and he had iron lungs, and I didn't use the man splitter. And I thought if ever there's someone who can use a man splitter, then that's gonna be it. Have any of you ever been able to use the orc weapons with any sort of effectiveness?
Yes. I had a veteran Iron Man run where on day 6 I got attacked by an orc berserker and a couple of young.
Mm-hmm.
And the berserker had one of the two-handed flails, the spikes,
oh hell yes,
whatchamacallit.
Oh
yeah.
And I had one of my starting companions, the heavy melee dude, had iron lungs. I'm like, screw it, he's gonna use this flail, and boy did it do some work. The orc weapons I generally like using early on are the cleavers. Even though they're heavy fatigue usage, they hit so hard they two-shot everything near the game.
Wow. Bosco, you were going to say? Go ahead.
I tinker with orcish weapons, but I just didn't find luck in them somehow. Just they kept dying and missing the enemies, so I don't know. It was just an impulse. All right, I should probably stop tinkering with that.
Can you take a couple swings with a heavy orc weapon and then just drop it on the ground and pull out a secondary weapon? Because if you put it back into your inventory,
you can't drop something on the ground if there's not something already there for you to take and replace.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So Cleaver Mastery, you master cleavers to inflict gruesome wounds. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Bleeding damage inflicted by cleavers is doubled by 10 per turn. Interesting. I quite liked the Cleaver Mastery. I had it in an offline campaign. Again, it was the same one in South Africa, but stupidly, I didn't realize that I was up against the undead as my first crisis, and then my cleaver guys were essentially useless. So, do you think it's worth having at least one cleaver bro in the lineup?
I think early on you could get away with going Cleaver Mastery if you get some early Kopeshes. Because it is on par with a military cleaver. It's a very solid weapon if you can get them early. And in my anniversary campaign, I actually still have a dude at veteran rank 22 who is using a Kopesh.
The Kopesh is great, but it falls off then past day, I don't know, say 90, I would say.
It's still pretty solid. The Kopesh has increased armor effectiveness, which the military cleaver doesn't, which helps keep it more relevant. And being able to stack the bleed up on the Noble Wars in particular, being able to get those big bleeds off, because it only has to do a little bit of damage to get the bleed off, which is really nice.
Yeah, the Kopesh is really great. I only take cleavers, to be honest, against the undead, but I found the Kopesh for the first time and I was like, oh hey, that looks cool, and boy was it cool. It was really cool.
Very nice.
Well, I have one guy usually who is usually like a built-up character, so I don't have to worry about him dying for a long time. So I don't mind.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's another note Sauce Dude just pulled up in chat is the Crypt Cleaver, the two-handed Warbrand variant of that's a cleaver.
Oh, awesome.
It's actually incredibly effective and benefits heavily from the mastery.
What are its piercing and armor percentages?
It does 65 to 85, has 25% ignore, and 115 effectiveness against armor. But like the Warbrand, it's a two-handed weapon that can swing twice in a turn.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic.
And it got immediately nerfed as soon as they released it. It used to be 170% effectiveness against armor.
Wow.
And it destroyed everything.
One thing that's worth pointing out is you can stack the bleeds. So if you hit someone multiple times, they get multiple stacks. If you have someone with I'd say best case scenario with a Cleaver Mastery, let's say you're fighting a Berserker or an Orc Warrior, you hit him twice, put 2 big bleeds on, and then kind of just hide behind your shields and then bleed out. But I'm sure there's more effective ways of doing it. But
you're not going to reliably bleed out an Orc Warrior. I'm just going to.
They have, no. But I mean, it is helpful though, isn't it? Having 10, 20 hit points ticking away every turn is it's not.
It does help a little bit.
Yeah.
It does help a little bit.
Okay, moving on.
Usually, once you get through the armor, though, it's not a big deal.
Anymore. Yeah, exactly. Once you're through the armor, then you're not relying on the bleed anyway. So, okay, Sword Mastery. Master the art of sword fighting and using your opponent's mistakes to your advantage. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Riposte no longer has a penalty to hit chance. Split and swing gain a +5 chance to hit. If I take Sword Mastery, it's only going to be on a two-handed guy because of the +5 chance to hit.
Well, it's for the minus fatigue.
You did that, of course, but the whole +5 to hit as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only reason to do it. Base swords are just not very effective in the game.
Unless it's a bit niche, and I keep making these little niche arguments, but I did have a lineup where I was sort of alternating someone who has a unarmored weapon, a quote unquote unarmored weapon, a weapon that's good against unarmored targets like a spear or a sword. It'll be like sword, hammer, sword, hammer, sword, hammer. So the guy with the hammer destroys the guy's armor, the guy with the sword then chops him up. But it kind of seems like it wasn't worth the effort that I was going to keeping a lineup like that. Because as you guys have said, if you're trying to hit someone with armor with a sword, it's so sad. It just bounces off the armor and does nothing.
Yeah.
It's good for leveling dudes up, just because the bonus hit chance, and it's still more relevant than a spear usually.
Yeah, generally, I mean, if I've got someone who's a newbie, they're just going to be, their mission is to get whatever hits off they can with a spear and just stay alive. So generally, someone will quote unquote graduate from spear to whatever weapon I'm going to assign them to straight away. But maybe it's worth it with a sword.
There's something similar with that, but they're usually graduating from a polearm.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Bosco, go ahead.
Yeah, I usually only use one-handed swords at the early game because I found riposte to be useful there, but after a while it just doesn't bring enough damage, and
Yeah, the
It
only
doesn't
time
give you any
the only
extra.
time I find swords to be super useful is if you're getting swarmed by dire wolves or noctias, but those aren't hugely threatening enemies anyway. But if you know you're running into like a huge group of dire wolves and you do have a bunch of swords, I'd recommend chucking swords at everybody. It's freaking wonderful because you just put shield wall and riposte and they just hit themselves 3 times. It's wonderful. Might even be useful against goblin wolf riders, but I can't see them missing because those little fuckers are so accurate. They never seem to miss.
The dog misses a lot. The,
Oh
shield doesn't.
god, wolf riders! I hate them. They're the worst. The only thing that's a saving grace is the very hilarious noise they make when they run away. They go ha 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 as they run away, which I quite enjoy. Other than that, goblins can fuck off. Have any of you had any
That's
chance?
the general consensus.
Yeah. Have any of you had any success with a sword master using a one-handed sword without a shield?
Nope. Mine used a cleaver.
I haven't tried that one out yet, to be honest.
I briefly entertained a build using dodge and light armor, but that just doesn't seem like it's going to work anywhere past the early game. It might be gimmicky, but once you get bigger, meaner enemies, I mean... And the intrinsic problem is, like, you said you use a cleaver on your guy. The intrinsic problem with the sword master, he's still just using a sword, so any enemy with a shield or armor is just not going to really struggle with him. So I don't think...
I think
Yeah, the reason why... Sorry, go ahead, Bosco.
I was just going to throw in that I think I saw dudes on YouTube who like attacked 20 bandits or something with one duelist brother. And
Were they thugs or they raiders?
brother is like level.
That was
30
an old
or
patch, though. I know what you're talking about. That was before they changed Nimble to where they could get it to Nimble stacked higher than the base 5% chance to hit. So it put their chance to hit somewhere around 1%.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
But it no
Didn't
longer
know
works
it.
that way.
I certainly hope that guy's sword master was called Syrio Forel. Any other name is the wrong name to give a sword master. Okay, next, Dagger Mastery. Master swift and deadly daggers. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Stab and puncture have a reduced action point cost to allow for an additional attack each turn. And earlier on, Sostud actually pointed out that he still wants to have someone that's got iron lungs and see whether he can make a viable Dagger Master who just goes for the punches every single time. I like the sound of that.
I like
Could be pretty
it.
cool.
I actually had a Swordsmaster that was using Dagger Mastery, and against certain targets, when he pulled out that dagger, he could just rip through certain targets very easily. But I was still finding he was more effective when he just used quick hand swap to his cleaver and attacked an orc.
Yeah.
Because even with the health, the dagger just wasn't enough.
Although, which dagger was it though? Because I'm pretty sure, again,
It was not a
niche.
famed, it was a rondel.
But I was going to say, if your options are a rondel or, just certainly a Scremasax or a Kopesh, maybe you're better with the rondel.
Yeah,
You'd have to look at the numbers,
Rondel
but
would be comparable to those, and it is pretty cheap to buy early on. But I was comparing it to a famed axe that had damage up, armor effectiveness up, and it wasn't a comparison at that point.
Hans, can you quickly pull up what are the numbers for a successful hit with a rondel with the armor pierce? Because I'm thinking again possible synergy with crippling strikes there.
Well, that particular unit died a couple of days ago.
Ah.
But just without duelist, which would be an additional 25%, with a rondel dagger, the puncture does, let's see, 25 to 50.
25 to 50.
Yep, that's without
if
the
you hit.
duelist, which is an additional 25% on top of that.
Well, so if you do 25 to 50 hit point damage, then you don't even need crippling strikes because it's above 15. So unless it's modified, you should be inflicting a wound every time.
Yep, and it pretty much always inflicts a wound.
Very, very, very cool. But then again, it's a piercing wound. So what are you going to be getting? You're going to be getting pierced lungs,
You actually
cut
start
artery.
getting stuff like stabbed guts and grazed kidneys, which start reducing their total health pool, which is actually
Ooh.
pretty significant for it.
Okay, something worth thinking about. This could be a playthrough that you could have with axe or shield breakers at the back and just dagger bros up front. Maybe one of you guys can take that on because I'm going to take on the Viking playthrough. I'm sure it'll be a disaster.
Oh god. I like that undead scourge.
Yeah. Can we move on to Polearm Mastery? Master Polearms and keeping the enemy at bay. Skills build up 25% less fatigue. Repel and Hook will now also stagger any target hit, moving it to the end of the turn. Reap gains +5 chance to hit. Polearm Mastery I've only ever taken once, and that was when I actually had Oh, for goodness sake, what's it called? It's that undead weapon that lets you use
War Scythe.
the War Scythe. Yes, I actually managed to get a War Scythe at like day 40 or something, and I put him on my one of my Huskarls who had like I think 69 attack value, and he was just chopping mofos' heads off left, right, and center. It was wonderful. But short of getting a War Scythe, I can't see any argument really for taking Polearm Mastery.
I mean, if you had a famed polearm, I could see you doing it. Because the stagger is actually pretty relevant on hook. It lets you be able to hook a unit that's using a shield wall, pull him into a unfavorable position for him, and staggers him so he doesn't react until the end of the turn. But I've only ever had that work once, and I never thought that was worth the entirety of the Polearm Mastery. If you've got guys in the back line, you just want Axe Mastery and use long axes. It's just more effective.
And the thing is, I found Repel to be more technically useful than Hook, because if you repel someone away, you know, someone who's in trouble can move away, or then the person who's been repelled has to spend action points moving towards you to re-engage. It's only one swing. I really wish that they would make a change where, with a Polearm, you can choose to use Repel or Hook. I mean, with a halberd, you could theoretically still be able to use Repel. I'd really like that change to be made. And also the thing is, I don't really see the need for the reduced fatigue, because just with the attack, it costs 15 fatigue, and base you're recovering 15 fatigue. So for the base attack, you don't desperately need the reduced fatigue from the mastery. And I can't see you using Repel or Hook that often that it justifies it either. So I think this is a skill that needs a bit of tweaking, and I hope that they make a change to it to make it more relevant.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I just think the base problem is that the top tier of the polearm weapons just aren't very appealing.
Yeah, like the thing is, I haven't actually, well, to my shame, gotten far enough to use one of the tier 3 polearms, but if I got someone on the back line, I want them to be using that Dane Axe. The versatility and the damage of the Dane Axe is just wonderful. I love it. Sos Dude makes the point that polearm mastery is just for the War Scythe, and I think we can kind of agree on that. At the moment, they need to make some changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Agreed. Spear Mastery. Spear Mastery. Master fighting with spears and keeping the enemy at bay. Skills will 25% less fatigue. Spear Wall is no longer disabled once an opponent manages to overcome it. Instead, the Spear Wall continues to give free attacks on any further opponent attempting to enter the zone of control. Have any of us ever taken Spear Mastery?
Yes, once. But it's because I had a famed spear on day 25.
Ah.
It was a damage up famed spear. I'm like, alright, I'll be using this one for a while. Let's take spear. And that guy was awesome. He held off 4 orc warriors on one of my warlord tents that I was taking on.
Oh, wow.
But other than that, no. It's just not very good. Spears just aren't usable once you hit to the mid-late game.
Yeah. You agree, Bosco?
100%.
So, I haven't actually ever used the tier 3 spear, the War Spear. It seems to have pretty decent numbers, and I'm wondering whether I should maybe invest in at least one, and when I get it, like an inexperienced brother to use a spear, so at least he isn't doing complete horseshit damage with a little boar spear.
No,
Maybe
it's still pretty crap.
spear.
It's a really expensive tier 1 weapon.
Yes.
And it's just, you're better off buying a freaking greatsword and having at people. Or in my case, buying a coat of scales or something. Like, it's just, the only reason you would ever go for it is if you got a famed spear that was a solid roll. That's the only reason I would ever see it.
Yeah, Spear Wall is great against zombies and whatnot, but I mean, when I'm fighting large numbers of zombies, I'm looking at all that sweet, sweet armor, and I want to be, daggering them and selling off the armor for profit or using it.
And the way I look at it, yes, it's good against zombies, but zombies aren't an issue once you hit the mid-game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
If you're
your whole
building
tactic...
your army to fight the weakest units in the game,
you got problems. You got problems. Although, here's an interesting question. If I have a brother with Spear Mastery, and he's got a Spear Wall down, and a vampire teleports into that circle next to him, then he should get an attack off on it.
I don't actually know, because I've never brought spears in to fight vampires.
Indeed. And something that it's pretty... Maybe it's worth testing niche-wise, but I mean, the only way to make that effective then would be to give everybody spears, and that, doesn't... And the AI would probably just stand outside of range and watch you while you exhaust your brothers holding the spears down, and then once the spear wall stops... Okay, so Spear
Also,
Mastery...
if they have Spear Wall, why would the vampire go for it? Like, I think the AI wouldn't risk it just for the sake.
It wouldn't. The other point I'd make is that spear wall also doesn't become useful. Even raiders are smart enough to put a shield up and walk into it, and then bang, bounces off the shield, and there goes your spear wall. So kind of useless.
The undead do it too.
Yeah.
As
Okay, now
works. Pretty much every enemy does it.
the ranged weapon masteries. Crossbow mastery. Master crossbows. Additional 20% of damage inflicted with crossbows ignores armor. So we've covered this discussion, and Hanz, you seem pretty set that bows are the way to go over crossbows.
Bows are better than crossbows. That being said, I'm currently playing with crossbows right now in one of my other run-throughs because my archers just have a really low skill.
Yeah.
So
the thing is, I do want to have a playthrough where I have the standard 7 and 5 setup, and then you've got your banner bro on the back line, and then instead of 4 bow masters, I'll have two bows and 2 crossbows. And I'm thinking I want to inflict on those raiders what they inflict on me. I want to have my crossbow guys with headhunter and just shoot guys in the face, because the amount of times you can one-shot someone with a crossbow, get them in the head. Yeah, seems like it happen quite a lot, but I think we can agree, of the two, you generally want to be going bow mastery.
Yeah.
Okay, so description of bow mastery, 25% less fatigue, but the main thing is view range and maximum firing range increased by 1. So if you're shooting at a height advantage, it's 8, was it 9? You can't go above 8. It's hard capped at 8, isn't it?
Except with height advantage.
Okay, so if you have height advantage, it can be 9.
It actually goes higher than that. If you've got 3 tiles higher than them, you can shoot 10.
Okay, so we agree bow mastery is good. So throwing mastery, yeah. I'm gonna release this unpopular opinion puffin here. Let's first read the description. So damage increased by 40% when attacking by 2 tiles, and damage increased by 20% when attacking by 3 tiles. So here's my unpopular opinion. If you're going for a hoplite build where you've got guys in the back line who still use shields and javelins or throwing axes, it could be useful, because let's not disregard 40% extra damage from a thrown javelin. And this is particularly since that change they made, where if you're throwing across 2 tiles, which is just across your brothers in front of you holding a shield, you'll get 40% extra damage. So javelin damage is what, 25 to 40. 40% of that. That's not nothing. Although the obvious counter to that is that's a little bit less than a warbow. So in that case, then why don't you just give the guy a bow and use a warbow?
Yeah, you're still coming up with the problem that throwing weapons is the worst weapon type in the game. They're more useless than swords.
I really want to build where throwing weapons can be useful, damn it.
Yeah, they'd have to do some inherent changes with throwing weapons. Because right now, only being able to throw 4 times, with the damage that they deal at the short range that they are, they're just not worth it. And
the big fatigue cost. Yeah. I think the only time I'm ever going to be using throwing weapons is when I have archers who, it's obvious that they're going to be outshot by the enemy's archers. So I've had a few playthroughs where I'm really struggling, where I'm trying to level up my archers and I get caught out in the open during the day against bandit marksmen, and I don't know what the marksman's accuracy is. It's like 1,000. That they never fucking miss. It's too damn high. In that case, then, even though you've got an archer, give them a kite shield and have your entire formation move forward. Maybe then it's useful, because in that situation, if you've got enemy marksmen, your archers just get riddled with arrows and just die. It's freaking depressing.
I took throwing mastery once, perhaps, but I like to try almost everything out in this game. I was like, let's see how it goes, and it just, you really depend on the situation. That's the thing about it. And then often I find myself wondering, like, oh fuck, which brother had the throwing mastery? I don't use it. I don't have the opportunity, and when I do, it doesn't help a lot.
Well,
I had 1 or 2 decent throw.
This is an issue I'm going to be coming up against now in my Vikings playthrough, where I'm going to go for 7 and 5, and then again banner bro, and then 4 guys who are hybrid throwing weapon users, because they're only allowed to use axes, so they can use throwing axes. That fits within the playstyle. Their job is going to be to use rotation to help out guys on the front and to throw some axes. And generally, as I'm saying it sounds so shit, but I'm going to have to try. I'm going to have to try and make it work. It's more important that I stay within the spiel of what I'm trying to achieve. Hopefully, it'll be funny.
It would be an interesting discussion for a future stream, how to make it worthwhile with the throwing weapons.
Make it work. Okay.
I've tried so damn hard to make it worthwhile.
So we've covered all of the tier 4, which is all the weapon masteries. Let's do tier 5, and then on the next one we'll cover 6 and 7, because we're hitting the hour mark here. Let's cover tier 5, and then that'll be it for this podcast. So, reach advantage. Learn to use the superior reach of large weapons to keep the enemy from getting close enough to land a good hit. Each hit with a two-handed weapon, melee weapon, adds a stack of reach advantage that increases your melee defense by 20, up to a maximum of 6 stacks. Until this character's next turn, a single attack hitting multiple targets can add several stacks at once. If you put away your weapon, you lose all stacks. Reach advantage is am I stupid? It's a no-brainer for all your two-handed guys, isn't it?
All your frontline two-handers, your backliners don't need it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, frontline guys, yeah.
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
It's a must-have skill.
Okay, so not much to say about that really. It's a must-have. Take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Overwhelm. Learn to take advantage of your high initiative and prevent the enemy from attacking effectively by overwhelming them with your attacks. With every attack, hit or miss against an opponent that acts after you in the current round, inflict the overwhelmed status effect, which lowers both melee skill and range skill by 10%. The effect stacks with each attack and can be applied to multiple targets at once with a single attack. I kind of would like to take it, because when I have overwhelm being used against me by like a bandit raider or a bandit leader, sorry, it's a real pain in the arse, and I'm wondering whether I might want to use it. But knowing how your initiative degrades with your fatigue, it worries me.
It suffers the same problem as dodge, in that it's the way initiative works in combat. It'll be effective for the first round or two, but once you get past that, it's just not worth it.
But the thing is, then your enemies are getting tired as well, so then theoretically, if you have someone who's acting first, as you and your enemies get tired, unless they're undead,
your
of course.
enemies are almost never in as heavy of armor as you are.
Ah, true.
So your initiative is almost always going to be lower. And Sauce Dude in chat is bringing up that it's pretty nice on archers. The problem with that is archers are already like point shy. Like you just don't have enough points to go around anyways. So what are you going to give up for it? You're going to give up your quick hands? You're going to give up your safety tool and footwork? I'm not giving up anticipation. I don't like my archers being shot down. So it's just, what point do you take out to give them overwhelm? Because right now my archers are capped on points. There's 2 more skills I'd like to take that they can't already. So
it's not really a game changer. I really feel like it doesn't really worth it. It's not bad to say, but I just don't feel the difference between my two. In my offline campaign that I'm playing right now, I have one with overwhelm and I have one without. There's not. I could say there's no difference in between them in this regard.
I mean, the thing is, if you're fighting a high threat target like an overlord or a bandit leader or something, it would be great to be able to overwhelm them. But then again, that threat being so, for lack of a better word, threatening, they're going to be probably going to be acting ahead of that guy anyway. So you're not going to be able to overwhelm them.
Yeah, the other thing you could probably consistently overwhelm is orcs.
Probably.
And you'll only be overwhelming them for the first couple turns because their fatigue just doesn't go up.
But you don't build a brother just to fight orcs.
Yeah, true.
I build most of my brothers just to fight orcs because I find them to be the most fun to fight.
I also enjoy fighting orcs and little goblins. The little sounds are very, very cool. Sostude points out that he gives up gifted, but I've kept on going back and forth on gifted, but at the moment I'm in a state where I really like gifted and I think I should be taking it.
I'm still a heavy proponent of gifted. I will not be dropping that anytime soon.
Yeah. Okay. Lone Wolf. I work best alone. With no ally within 3 tiles of distance, gain 15% bonus to melee skill, range skill, melee defense, range defense, and resolve. Sounds kind of cool, but who's going to be out by themselves? Maybe a two-handed axe guy, but God, that seems like a risk.
It's not worth the point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Also,
the
it's
only
15%.
time that I've ever seen that be useful is someone had it on their duelist build, but not worth it.
But then again, it's a duelist, so...
Yeah.
Okay, footwork. Lets you move away from a zone of control without triggering the free attacks by using skillful footwork. That's generally a backline skill, isn't it? Archer skill.
I've been using it on all of my backliners, and I've started replacing rotation with it on my frontliners. I find it to be more useful than rotation.
Well, the problem I have...
footwork can help you if you're bleeding, for example, and then you can patch yourself real quick. But Yeah, I have to agree with Hans here. That sounds like the most the best way to do it.
Generally, I think it's going to be
You're gonna
better.
need one of them. You're gonna need one of these, either footwork or
rotation. The thing is, like, also in my little Vikings playthrough, I'm going to be taking rotation, but that's only because I'm specifically building my backline to be versatile enough to rotate out a frontline guy who's hurting and be able to pull out a shield themselves, and then the frontline guy then goes to a two-handed axe. That's the ambition eventually. Whether it turns out to be workable or not, I suspect not. We'll see, but that's the idea. Okay, so footwork's a good one. Get it on your archers, get it on your banner bro, get it on your pikemen. Underdog. Any defense malice due to being surrounded by opponents no longer applies to this character. I used to think it was a no-brainer to take on your two-handed guys. Is it though? I think it kind of is.
If your character is going to be in base contact with an enemy, he needs underdog, period.
So that's
no-brainer still.
Shield bearers as well, true. Because let me see if I've understood how it works correctly as well. So let's say you've got a standard 6 of your guys against 6 of their guys neat against each other. So your guys right in the middle are going to have... They're going to be in contact with 3 guys. So...
2.
Isn't it? It's 2. It's 2, is it 3? The 1 in front of them and 2 to the sides. Well, okay, well, it's 2 if it's a straight line. Yeah, it's 2 if it's a straight line. If you've got a guy who's on the flank, it's 3, and they've got another person around them. But in a situation where it's 2, the enemy hitting you is getting plus 10% because the 5%. Defense malice is... Well, it works out to 10 because it's 5% for each person, is what I mean.
No, it's 5% for each person above the first, I believe is what it is. Yeah. Yeah,
so if it's 2 people, then it's a total of 10%. Higher chance to hit them.
5%. Yeah. It only applies for each person above the first one. The first one does not count.
Okay.
So if you have a guy that is surrounded by 3 enemies, right? The one in the middle that's going to be attacking him will get a bonus 10% chance to hit, 5% for each of the additional dudes flanking.
Yeah. So underdog essentially counters backstabber, doesn't it? Chance is double to plus 10 each ally surrounding. Okay.
It's mainly just so that you don't get overwhelmed. And you're always going to be overwhelmed, just the way the numbers work in the game. You're only allowed to field 12. The enemies could field all the way up to 60. Is the highest I've seen.
Well, I mean, I agree. I'm taking underdog on everybody as well. So go ahead, Bosco.
From mid game to late game, I think.
I still find it to be very useful in the early game too.
Yeah, but
because every once in a while you'll have a dude that gets caught out of position, and if the enemies start having a 10-15% bonus chance to hit him, he's done.
But you need 4 levels of leveling up to reach this.
Yep, you do. It's still the first thing I take on all of my frontliners as soon as they get to that tier.
Yeah, it's very useful. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm taking as well. That's something we can agree on, which is quite nice. But then that's got me thinking. Then backstabber. If you take backstabber on your frontline guys, of course that's always subject to the discussion of what are you taking. What are you not taking by taking backstabber? But then, if you're in that standard 6 of your guys against 6 of that guys, then you should be getting plus 10 to hit chance from backstabber, which is pretty good. But I'm not convinced that an entire perk point to give you plus 10% and only in that situation is worth it.
Yeah, you're still probably better off if you want the hit chance to take a fast adaptation.
True. Here's a mechanical question. Sorry to interrupt you, Bosco. Would backstabber proc? So if I have a 2-handed Dane axe on the back line, and he takes backstabber, and then there's a whole row of guys in front of him, and he's attacking someone across from him. Does he get the backstabber bonus?
He still gets the surround malice that the opponent has. Yes.
So that 2-handed backline guy would, if he takes backstabber, gets an extra 10% chance to hit. It would work out that way.
Well, it would be an additional 5% on top of it. So what backstabber does is it doubles the effectiveness of the surround malice on the opponent. So it goes from 5% for each surround to 10%.
Oh yes, and because you're on the back line, you can only get 1 or 2. All right, yeah, so it would only be plus 5. Okay, so in that case, then it's not justifiable for a Dane X user. Then I don't think extra 5%.
Probably not. I've never thought the ability was terribly viable by itself.
Yeah, I'm just trying to theory craft ways where it could be useful. Lads, we're coming up on an hour and 15, and I see there's 8 more skills. Should we just push through and cover the last tier 6 and 7 skills?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. The Berserk. Once per turn, upon killing an enemy, 4 action points are immediately refunded. Characters cannot regain more than their maximum action points and no more than 4 for a single attack. Let me start this off by admitting in shame, hanging my head in shame, that on my my playthrough, which just finished now on YouTube, I had a crossbowman who I gave Berserk to. And then the first time it procced, I realized what a freaking idiot I am, and it doesn't actually do anything. Because it gives
actually does do things. If your crossbow is already reloaded, like it starts the turn reloaded, you fire, you kill, you can then reload and fire again.
But then if you've moved, you can't.
It allows you to fire and then move, which is very nice.
Yeah. But the point I'm making though is that, I mean, taking Berserk on the crossbowman was not great.
I actually still take it on all of my crossbows because it increases their mobility.
Yeah. You can move around though. Well, in my experience though, I felt like such a tard taking Berserk on my crossbowman. Wasn't able to get much out of it, but I think Berserk's a bloody great skill, particularly on your one-handed weapon users.
I never use it on my one-handed weapon users. I use it on my two-handers only, pretty much.
But your two-handers, so obviously if they can only get the second swing if they aren't moving, so that they can't attack, move, attack, proc, Berserk, move, and attack again due to the AP cost.
The way that I look at it is that it's what character is more likely to get the killing blow, a one-hander or a two-hander? And for me, it's almost always the two-hander gets the killing blow, especially if they're hitting multiple targets.
And because they do so much higher damage because it's two-handed weapon user. So
I give Berserk to anyone who has the fatigue to pull it off, to be honest. It just helps you quite a lot in battle if you don't get tired, like in round 2, if you overuse it.
Okay, so we agree, we like Berserk. Now here's going to be, I suspect, a controversial skill. Headhunter. 15% chance to hit the head for critical damage each time you hit the body. Bonus is reset upon hitting the head. I've stopped taking Headhunter, because very often, by the time I've built up a few stacks, to be able to hit the head, you're shooting at an enemy that has no body armor and full head armor, so then it works against you. Anyway, anyone disagree? Does anyone take Headhunter? How do you feel?
I didn't take it when it was a tier 2 perk. I'm not taking it now as a tier 6.
Yeah.
I took it for a while as a rookie because it sounded like a great thing, but on the long run, you need missed hits to gain advantage of it, and you just cannot lean on that.
So would you say if they tweak the skill to say gain plus 50% chance to hit the head each time you hit the body or miss, then it might be viable. I'm sort of thinking that it's something I might want to take on my Viking playthrough because I'm going to be using all axes, and axes do extra damage to the head, so I should be going for the head. But
yeah, it sounds like that, but I don't think it's a great help in battle. It
I mean,
cool,
the
in
thing is,
reality, it doesn't really help you.
I think we can agree.
Too many times I'm fighting orc warriors. I'm like, crap! I hit the head. Now he's not dead.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think we can agree there's synergy there with the axes, but is it worth spending a perk point on? And I'd suggest the answer is no.
Yeah. Especially not such a late perk point.
Yeah. Okay. Nimble, specializing in light armor. The chance to receive only a glancing hit scales between 100% with no penalty to maximum fatigue and 0 at 50 or more penalty to maximum fatigue. The lighter your armor and weapons, the more you benefit. I've never taken this, Hanz. I assume you would know how this works, and you would agree that it is, what's the word? Shit.
Inconsistent is the word I would use.
Yeah. No, we don't take Nimble.
It's the same trap that dodges. Sure, it looks great on paper until you realize you're sending your bros into the fight naked.
Yeah. And I kind of think that, look, I would like it if they made the change where your initiative didn't scale down with your fatigue, because then you can kind of carve out a niche for these kind of guys who, let's say, use only padded leather, and
You're
then
still going
just rely on
into
their
the problem
dodginess.
Even at that, they're still with padded leather. You still have like a 10% chance to not get the graze, and if they hit you with that 10% and say they hit you with a crossbow, your character's dead.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just, it's not worth the risk. You're
Look,
better
man,
off just going
I
for mitigation.
I just want my Sirio Forel character, okay? I want a dude with just like a fluffy little puffy shirt and some, and a bald head and
No,
one
if you want
sword
a badass
cutting bros
duelist,
up.
you just put him in Emperor's armor, head and chest, You give them Battle Forged and you send them in there. It's
Oh,
fine.
simple. You just need 2 pieces of legendary armor. Easy.
Yeah,
Just legendary armor.
well,
Yeah,
and
it's
then he'll
no
be
big deal.
reflecting damage back, increasing his
Yeah,
damage. It'll be great.
easy. Okay, Battle Forged. Specialize in heavy armor. Armor damage taken is reduced by a percentage equal to 5% of the total armor value of both body and head armor. Heavier armor and helmet, the more you benefit. I know how it works, but Hanz, I'm sure you are a big lover of this and can explain it better than I could of how exactly how it works.
If they're not an archer, they have Battle Forged. It's that
Yep.
simple.
Yep. But can you go into explaining exactly how it works? So
The way it is that, so say I'm just going to use the character I have pulled up right now is wearing the Emperor's, so that's 430 head, 430 chest. So what you do is you add those together, you've got 860, and then you multiply it by 0.05, and that's how much reduction you're getting. And if you're wearing full Emperor's, it's something like a 40% damage reduction. It's really freaking nice.
And that's 40% per hit. I mean, it scales a little bit lower because as your armor takes damage, it becomes less effective. But it is still very, very great. And I agree. I take Battle Forged on everybody. Frontline.
I'm actually not sure if the more damage they take, if that reduces the effectiveness of Battle Forged, because the way it reads is total armor value, not current armor value.
My understanding was that's how it worked because it seemed to be doing less as my brothers were taking damage. But I would defer to your breakthrough experience.
I've never actually tested it. I've just assumed that's the way it's worked, and I've never been proven wrong by it.
Maybe
someone
Bosco
else does know. Yeah.
Maybe Bosco knows.
Nah, I'm
Okay,
No,
so we agree. Battle Forged is a key. You've got to take it.
And it's still good,
Great,
even
yeah.
with just chainmail hauberks and the rusted nasal helmets. It's still
Still
solid
good.
then. It's still like 15% damage reduction, which is awesome.
Yep.
It's just as great as Terrible Nibble is.
Yeah. Okay, so tier 7. These are the juicy tier 7 skills. Fearsome. Make them scatter and flee. Any attack that inflicts at least 1 point of damage to hit point triggers a morale check for the opponent as opposed to only if at or above 15 points of damage. I think it's bloody great, but if you know you're going up against the undead, it ain't going to do shit for you.
Still my favorite perk in the game.
A question I have around enemy morale checks. Is the enemy's morale check only rolled off of their morale, or does your higher morale affect their morale?
It's rolled off of their morale. But
Only
the
their
reason why
morale.
Fearsome is so good is because you can do a cascade. So if it triggers the morale check on that opponent and they fail, it then triggers a lesser morale check on those around him. So you can start getting the cascade of them going into weakening morale states. And if you can start routing your enemies, you're winning half the battle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The reason
only
why I
think
like Fearsome so much is it's the only way to consistently interrupt orc chances to hit.
Indeed.
Because you can't reliably get injuries on orc warriors and warlords, but if they're lowered morale, that's just a flat percentage off they are. And it helps counteract the warlord shout.
Yeah. So you were going to say, Bosco?
I was just gonna say I only take Fearsome when I feel confident about the skill level of my brother. Otherwise, I'm not guaranteed to actually take take damage and hit it, and then it doesn't trigger the thing. So I'm more cautious about it.
Yeah. But that being said, someone who has very high attack damage or is using a spear or a sword or a flail is pretty damn guaranteed to hit when they do. But then again, they have to get through that armor. But I would agree, it's also my favorite tier 7 perk. It's one I take on everybody. It's bloody great. Okay, let's move on. Duelist. Become one with your weapon and go for the weak spots. With the offhand free, an additional plus 25% of any damage ignores armor. It does not work with two-handed weapons. Again, you're only taking it on a duelist, and I'm not building any duelists, so it's kind of a nothing skill as far as I'm concerned.
The skill is phenomenal on the character you can put it on.
But being able to put it on someone is
Yeah,
a bigger question, yeah.
really
Yeah.
freaking hard.
Yeah, I
You
think-
have to build him in order to make it work, I think.
Yeah, it's kind
The
of
character has to have
pretty
good
niche. It's a
melee
niche
skill,
skill.
good melee defense, good range defense, and good fatigue, and solid enough hit points they don't melt instantly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a very hard combination. It generally only happens on cell swords that roll well. That's generally it. I've seen a
Stiffness.
Hedge Knight that had it once.
Stephanos
Yeah.
points out maybe you can take, just to go back to Fearsome, you can put Fearsome on a dagger, and Sauce-Dude points out Warhammer and Fearsome is great, because remember, Warhammer is going to do at least 10 points, so it's guaranteed to proc a morale check every time it hits.
Every single weapon can do a hit which can ignore armor a certain
Yeah,
amount.
yeah.
This only requires a single point of damage to trigger the check. That's why I take Fearsome on every single character as soon as they're able to.
Indeed. Okay, Killing Frenzy. Go into a Killing Frenzy. A kill increases all damage by 25% for 2 turns. Does not stack, but another kill will reset the timer. Potentially some nice synergy there with Berserk to keep the stacks up, but I don't know. Like, I mean, once I've gotten Fearsome at tier 7, I'm kind of, and I get another level, I find myself taking something else from the lower tiers to plug a hole in my brother. I don't see myself taking Killing Frenzy, because again, it's a skill that you have to get a kill with for it to proc. I'd rather take a skill that procs passively or a bit more than that. I don't know how you guys feel about Killing Frenzy.
I love it. I personally put it on every single two-handed user in all of my archers.
Oh, two-handed, yeah, definitely.
But I do not put it on my one-handed dudes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Killing Frenzy too. I just with the archers, it's phenomenal. Also with Berserk, it's a really nice combination. It can deal some serious damage.
And a warbow, if memory serves, does 50 to 70, so increase that by 25%. You're hitting really, really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
50 to 70.
Super nice. Okay, last but not least, Indomitable. Unlocks the Indomitable skill, which grants a 50% damage reduction and immunity to being stunned, knocked back, or grabbed for 1 turn. I've never actually used it. Have you guys had any experience with Indomitable?
I have experience with it from before the perk rehaul, so not in, 8 months, 9 months? I've used it then, I don't use it now, it's just...
Does it have an AP cost to use?
I don't even know, I haven't taken it.
Because if it does, I can't understand how you would use it. Because I mean, if you got a two-handed weapon,
25 fatigue cost.
Oh my god, no!
What it had.
Yeah.
It was the same as every other activatable.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of perks where it says like, oh, it unlocks a new skill, because that has a heavy cost usually, so it has to be really worthwhile. And it sounds nice, but it's kind of it's weird coming from me, because I said I'm playing defensive, but it's just not get knocked back or stunned. But in the mid to late game, you're gonna be encircled quickly, so that's not gonna help your defense significantly.
One thing that jumps out at me about the skill is that it's only for 1 turn. So let's say, best case scenario, you have a two-handed axe user who wants to, he's surrounded by 6 guys. He wants to use Indomitable, spin in a big circle, and then rely on Indomitable to keep him alive. But let's say the turn starts. If his initiative is lower than any of those enemies, they're all going to get their attacks off before he gets to use it, which negates it because it's only 1 turn. And he's a two-handed guy in heavy armor, so his initiative is not going to be huge. If it has an AP cost, it could potentially stop you from being able to attack because you have to spend AP.
Yeah.
I mean, fine, use it and then attack without having to move. But again, it kind of seems like you get good value out of it, but you're being forced to jump through multiple hoops to be able to use it. And I can't help but feeling that this is a bit of a niche skill that's not going to be worth the perk point.
It's too reactive, in my opinion. It's
Indeed.
not a proactive skill.
Yeah. Terminator points out, I see synergy with it and taunt and recover on tanky guys in really big fights. So what are you saying, Terminator? You would use Indomitable and taunt. But then again...
2 more skills I never
2
used.
more skill points, yeah. I don't use taunt either, and I mean...
I had taunt on my historian that I was leveling up and I wanted to mess around with it, and I actually did some fun things. It was, I taunted, a goblin overseer. My dude had no reason being that close, but he then immediately didn't use his crossbow and just ran at me with a sword. But still, it's
well,
just...
actually, hang on. That is potentially a bit trolly, because I'm looking at a playthrough now of my Vikings, which aren't going to be using bows.
The problem is that you have to be so freaking close to activate taunt anyways.
Well, yeah, I was just kind of hoping. Imagine
it's got the same range as a throwing weapon. So
well, just imagine this. How hilarious would this be? Just imagine if it was eight squares though, and you have your backline guys who all have taunt. And look, I mean, I hate ranged enemies, so you just use taunt and force them to run towards you. I mean, that would be hilarious, but game breaking, I think.
The only way I think I would use Indomitable is if it negated the knockback of walking past someone's zone of control.
Mm.
So you could activate Indomitable and then run through their lines. If I could do that, then I would take the skill, and I think it would be a pretty fun one to use. But you still get knocked back from zone of control.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. That's. I think we'll put it in the experiment with it. See if you can make it work. Bin of the other skills, and who knows?
Maybe I'll mess around with it in my current playthrough.
Indeed. I mean, I'm just realizing now, doing this Vikings playthrough, I'm really stacking the deck against myself and really pigeonholing myself. But it could be great. It could be completely shit.
I'll try it on my two-hander dude that's got shit melee defense.
One thing I think it's guaranteed to be is entertaining. Okay, lads, so we've covered all the perks. We've done good work here. We've recorded an hour and a half of arguably interesting material. So, thanks for this, guys. I think it's been great. In terms of episode 4, I'd like to encourage you guys, well, by you guys I mean the viewers as well, to suggest questions and specific things that we haven't covered yet. Specific questions, mechanical questions, tactical questions. But what I'd like for us to cover in the next podcast is, Hanz, this is going to be your area, super late game.
Okay.
Such as once you've well into your first crisis and even beyond, and specific build order for specific classes. Because I find build order, what skills to take, is one question, but the order in which to take them is another entire discussion which I'd like us to cover.
Today is the 9th, correct?
Yes, all day long.
In 2 weeks, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks.
That's okay. We'll work out the timing offline. So unless there's anything else you guys would like to raise, I think we can say thanks for watching, everybody. Is that it from you, Bosco and Hanz? Anything else you want to raise?
No, I'm good for that.
No, I think we covered everything about the perks as we could.
Okay, good. Oh, and one last thing. I think we should have a little think about agreeing on a starting seed and doing a simultaneous campaign between the three of us. I think there might be some interest in that. Let us know in comments what you guys think about that.
We have to make it Iron Man, no scum.
Well, the thing is, let's make it honest, man. My recent YouTube campaign ended with a corrupted save file rather than an actual defeat on the battlefield, which was very, very disappointing. So
just
I would suggest,
then.
Yeah, I trust you guys, whether that's a good idea or not.
Okay.
All right, Bosco,
I mean,
thanks
if I do it, it's going to be online, so they'll let you know.
Yeah, of course. You'll be able to watch through the VODs. Or you can just upload your VODs wholesale onto YouTube. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably record it and upload it if we do something like that. So.
Okay, we'll think about that. We can we'll take some suggestions from chat, whether each of us has to work to a theme or each of us has to work to a certain play style. I think we need to work to hobble Hanz into a play style that's going to make him struggle, because I'm pretty damn sure he's way better than Bosco and I together. So,
yeah.
Everybody in comments and chat, you've got 2-3 weeks until the next podcast. Come up with suggestions for what you'd like to see each of us do. I'm liking that dagger. Yes, dagger only for Hanz. Yes, that's a very good early suggestion. But we'll
that fits more to my play style than yours.
If I know you
Hanz to make it even.
Yeah. All right, we'll figure it out.
To limit me from being able to use certain weapons.
Okay, like no shields.
No maces. Period.
Hey man, it's just friendly race. I don't mind losing.
Yeah.
There's only winners in this race.
Again,
it's alright. I'll mitigate it by doing things I shouldn't do, like, hey, a vampire cut.
Okay, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the discussion, and thank you guys for watching. This is Stobbie 149, Bosco the Bear, and Hanz Gruber saying thanks for watching, and catch you guys next time.